We're joined here this week by Dr. Eli Joseph. He's an author, educator, and TEDx speaker who currently serves as a faculty member at Columbia University and Queens College, and is a partner and a medical examiner at ExamOne, Quest Diagnostics company. So he's releasing a new book. It's called The Perfect Rejection Resume, a reader's guide to building a career through failure. Coming out February 15th. Looking at it today, definitely recommend it to people. Compiles lessons about failure from his own life experience and those from influential thought partners and leaders that he's had. So, Dr. Joseph, thank you for being on with us.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the intro.
Yeah. So you write, and you document in the book, and I appreciate it, like that you've personally overcome more than 1,500 educational, professional rejections, and that you've kind of used them actually to attain some of your landmark achievements. So I'm just kind of curious, like how have you used this rejection to kind of fuel your personal and professional growth?
I used to like, as far as the rejection resume, when I cultivated that a few years ago, it was more so of a response. Like I was tracking my failures. I always go by the saying, no trace, no case. It's the same for your, failures. You have to have a track record of failures in order for you to even succeed in anything. So I just wanted to note that, and I wanted to feel comfortable sharing it because everyone failed before, but no one really likes to talk about it. And I want to be the first to say, yeah, you know what, I failed, and it's okay, it's totally fine, especially for those who are within the college age range. As far as the high school, college, getting out of college, early careers. I think those are the group of people that need to hear from me first, because it's like I'm within their age range and their generation, and I would like to talk about it. I want to talk about it, and I would like to encourage them to talk about it as well. So, yeah, that's basically where the rejection resume comes about.
Yeah, and could you just kind of like define it? Like you're saying like rejection that comes out, like where, like how do you set that up? Like what is it that you're, it's not just like a totem. Like how are you kind of like using that for your own purpose?
So we know what we know what a resume is all about, right? A resume is basically a document. It's a 1-page or a 2-page document that basically highlights our acknowledgments and our accolades. The rejection resume is the complete opposite. The rejection resume basically highlights our failures. How many times we've been rejected at an organization. How many times we've flunked out of school. We can add that in our resume. If you've broken up with your girlfriend and it went viral, and unfortunately, you can add that to your rejection resume as well. It's everything regarding your failures, whether it's been it's embarrassing or not. You can add that within your rejection resume, and it's a tool that you can use to start a conversation on how you've came about. Because the only way you can go up from your failures, the only way you can go up from zero is, you have to start from 1. So, when we move forward, we have to realize that we will get punched in the face, or we will get slapped in the face, as you guys know. How do you respond to that? So that's the rejection resume. It's a document that highlights all of our failures, all of our struggling moments, as you can reflect on all the past that the past struggles that you've had. Bad days, horrible days, you can add that within your rejection resume.
Yeah.
So do you just continue the document? Like, is there any point that you stop? But are you saying like, no, forever? So Okay.
I have a question for you. When it's time for you to update your resume, do you stop at a particular point where, you reach that the 10th year of your career and you stop there, or you just continue to add on your skills or your accomplishments? I'm pretty sure you add on. You continue to modify your resume.
That's true.
You pretty much do the same for your rejection resume.
Sometimes I do selected experience, you know what I mean? But I guess you can pull those highlights as they're relevant, right? Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. Do you select your failures, or is it like across the board? Like how deep are we going into failures?
I like to select them. So let's say if I was rejected at a small boutique firm, yeah, it hurts, but I would rather highlight the fact that I've been rejected by JP Morgan 50 times. So just like how you selectively use your skills in your institutions here, in your resume, you selectively pick and choose your failures as well. You fail spectacularly. That's how
this is fascinating.
Yeah, and I guess is the concept to just celebrate the process? Like,
Yes.
Are we trying to look at this and be like, man, like I failed a bunch, but like look what I've been trying to do, right? Like I like what's the step? What comes out of this? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes. We always go by trusting the process. You're basically celebrating that process because we're taught to sweep all of the negative experience under the rug. We don't really talk about it. We want to focus on the positive. But with your rejection resume, it's more so of once again, it's a tracking system. It basically provides the complete opposite, the B side of your life. The A side is your success, right?
Mm-hmm.
We on social media, we would like to accomplish, let's say this podcast reaches over 1 million views. That's basically
that's going on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Let's go to our LinkedIn.
It's on LinkedIn, right? However, what about the takes, the multiple takes that we had in this podcast, the editing, the process, just taking things out, whether I stuttered in this process, all the negative stuff that occurred throughout the podcast interview, we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
So as far as the end product, we tend to talk about the end goal, and we celebrate being at the finish line. But as far as the process of getting there, I would like to talk about that as well, and that's where the rejection resume comes into play.
Yeah, and I wonder how much, and maybe this is kind of part of your construction too, it almost encourages positive risk taking. Because I feel like, you got this list, you're looking at it, every once in a while you reflect on it, and you're like, maybe you see something, and you realize, oh, I really wanted that. Like, that was actually really important to me. And maybe you go back and you try it again. Or even if it's like, if you count that in your accolades, you count that as part of your, we'll say larger success, right? Your person, then there isn't that same fear if it doesn't work out, because it still gets documented. It's still part of your, who you are and what you've done.
Yeah, it's more so of, when tables turn. It's funny because I'll pull one example here. Yeah. I remember applying to Columbia University as an undergrad, and I got rejected. And now I'm teaching at Columbia 5 to 6 years later. So it's more so of I look at the rejection, and I don't hold grudges upon the organization that rejected me. But I'm reflecting. I'm going back and say, you know what? Maybe let me go back to see if there's any opportunities now that's available at this institution. Let's say Harvard Business Review. I've been trying to get access and try to get my articles out there. And today I just found out that, they're interested in this story as well. This very same story.
Cool.
So it's more so of, if you don't want to talk, let's say you don't want to build your rejection resume and just leave it there. You also like to take some lessons upon it, and you can also reapply. And you may get rejected again, but it doesn't really defeat the purpose of just building your resume and just letting it, sit there. You always want to go back there and pick and choose all the skills that you've learned from it. So it's like a resume. But
is it a resume? So I'm actually interested in the more the logistical stuff of do you format it like a resume that you people do, the place where you applied? Do you analyze I applied on this date and I got rejected this way? I'm really curious about this process.
I basically formatted the rejection resume as a resume. So you'll see the letterhead, you see the institution, the year, the month and the year that I've applied, right? So let's take JP Morgan for example. I applied to JP Morgan over 600 times over the span of 2014 and 19. Right? It's stupid to apply so many times.
Hey, joke's on JP Morgan, all right? Joke's on them.
But you still want to utilize that, the same format, the experiences, the organization, the year, the same format as you would as a resume. Now, as far as sharing it, here's the tidbit. As far as sharing your resume, I wouldn't recommend people to share their resume and upload their resume where you're supposed to upload your resume. But you can use your rejection resume to share that on LinkedIn as a story, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to incite a rejection resume challenge, but it would be a good idea. It would be a good idea to share that, so that way you can provide context to your story. And the reason why I put the perfect rejection resume is because there's nothing perfect about being rejected and failing. However, it perfectly aligns with your story.
Well, then, so you have it out there. You mentioned college students, and that's obviously a population that you work with kind of directly. Yeah. So what is this process then? You got it. You kind of have that selected piece. Like you mentioned reflection. You mentioned like gaining from this. Like, how do you work with them to kind of start to see and pull and understand what direction they want to go?
Well, you basically have to have an honest conversation and let them know that you're living in a perfect bubble in college. You're living in this perfect bubble where everything is handed to you. The lessons are handed to you every day that you're coming in for a lecture. It's handed to you. You have a test, right? However, once you get out there, right, and this is why we call it a commencement, because it's a start. It's the start of your journey. Once you get out there, you're going to fail, and some failures you're going to take with you, and you will take it as a lifelong lesson, and others you just move on from it and not worry about it. I would say use that rejection resume as a tool, like a diary. Think of it like a diary. You don't have to document every single thing that happened every single day, but document the highlight, right? Whether it's highlighted in where you think it's going to be very impactful in the future, take it as a learning point and highlight that, so that we can go back there. It's more so of a document, and it's an organized way to document your failures and build from that. And it's so difficult to have this conversation with college students because they're just not getting started. Right. So you can't.
They haven't seen the darkness.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you want to have them, experience that and utilize that as a starting point. So that way, even if they feel compelled to even share their story, they can, and perhaps they may get a job from that. I had experiences where people have shared their rejection resume on LinkedIn, and the story went viral, and next thing you know, they're getting offers from the same institution that rejected them. So you can utilize that as a marketing tool as well.
Interesting. So now I'm curious about this. Do you push people then to ask for feedback from companies when they do get rejected, to ask for that feedback?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think, and here's a question that I was talking to Brendan about this before, do you think that companies should have to provide feedback to you?
Yes, but as far as providing feedback, they already got their ideal candidate.
Mm-hmm.
So I hate to put it that way, but they don't really care about you because
everyone else that applied. Yeah.
No, I know.
If they care to offer an advice, they would hire you anyways. So they will offer you, some feedback, and some companies do. They offer that feedback, saying, "Hey, you could have been struggling in this case, or you could have been struggling with this question," and you can take that with you, and you can utilize it for your future, like let's say for your future endeavors, if you want to interview for a company like that within that industry. So you can get that feedback for the most part, they really don't care about providing feedback.
Yeah. Well, let's think about this in a more like kind of just then in the way that all of us are growing and progressing and trying to develop this stuff. You talk a little bit in the book about time and how time is one of your biggest competitors. I'm kind of curious. Like, I feel that way a lot. It's actually like a conflict point in my marriage. Often is because my wife's all like, "Dude, just chill out." But time and me are not friends. So I'm curious your take on that, because I resonate, at least I think in some ways.
I was gonna talk about that too. That was basically one of my talking points. And another talking point is rent being your rent being do it every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So it ties in with time, because like if you have that mind frame that like every single day that you wake up, you have to pay your landlord. The landlord, those are your goals. Like you have that contract with your landlord, and you have to pay and the currency that you're paying with is your effort.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how time is your biggest competitor, because you're not competing against anyone. Like, like people think I'm competing against myself or I'm competing. No, you're really competing against time. Because think of it like this. If you have a deadline, right? If you have a deadline, you need to hit that deadline. You are going to act in a sense of urgency. This is why it's always important to set deadlines on some things that it's important. Because you're going to get it done.
Yeah.
Because you're going against time. If I give you an assignment and we'll say, oh, no, there's no deadline. I'm pretty sure it's not at the top of your head. It's not at the top of your mind where you have to get it done. This is why I say time is the biggest competitor, because like time is constantly ticking, right? Regardless of whether or not you're sleeping, you're waking up, you're actively working, time is ticking and it's constantly ticking. If you have that mindset that you're competing against time, then every second would matter. Every second matters here in your case here.
So it's creating that like external structure a little bit to like make sure that you're pushing because of the fact that you're trying to like actually, I don't know, like accomplish that goal basically.
Think of it like this, like, when we say, I don't have time for this, right? I don't have time to be worried about negative. You really don't have time. It's true. You don't have the time to worry about the negative stuff that's unproductive, right? You don't want to waste time sitting idle, right, on the sidelines and relaxing and chilling and whatnot. You always have to have that sense of urgency. And with that sense of urgency, that deadline, once you have that deadline in the back of your mind, you'll always be competing against time constantly.
Yeah.
So have you ever seen the rejection resume backfire, I guess? Like somebody gets rejected so many times that they get like engulfed in their own sorrow, essentially. So, and I know I just wonder about like that tool becoming like maybe negative if somebody looks at it and they keep on just seeing like, I can't get a job. I'm just interested in like what that might look like.
Yeah, it backfires, but once we have that word, those words of affirmation here, like you share it on LinkedIn and you feel embarrassed even sharing that. But that's the first start, right? But once you see those comments pouring in, like, look, you're not the only one that's dealing with rejection. I've failed so many times. Once you get those stories pouring on and within your comments, then you'll feel better about yourself. So initially it backfires where, I remember sharing my rejection resume and I'm like, man, I kind of regret even sharing this. And sometimes some people, they have that hate. Some people hate you, to the point where it's like, you deserve to fail. Like, what were you thinking about? What were you thinking about applying to JP Morgan so many times? You deserve to get those rejection resume and those rejections in. And it's like, okay, that's cool. But once you get the other stories, like, man, I've applied so many times too. And they reach out to you privately too. They don't want to share those comments publicly, so they reach out to you privately saying, look, I'm in this situation as well, and I'm constantly reminded, and I'm inspired by your story. You never know who's inspired by your stories. And oftentimes, when you get when you get that rejection resume backfiring towards you, it's actually those people that you know. Those are your biggest critics here, like the people that you know, whether it's your parents, whether it's your partner. They will get on you, and they will hate on the fact that you've applied so many times. But when you think of the strangers reaching out to you saying, hey, you're inspiring me, I'm rooting for you, that as far as the resume within itself backfiring, it probably won't. It's more so of a reverse psychology where you're thinking of like you're sharing your negative, right? You're not looking for the positive, but you're just sharing it. You're putting it out there saying, look, I've tried so many times and I failed so many times, and we just share it. And you never know, people would have that same, people will always love that story, story, that you shared, and people don't like to talk about like those type of stories, but those stories, they go viral. They tend to go viral where, you share your negative aspect. But it's okay.
Do you have any, like, from your own experience when you put that out there, do you have like something that came from that sticks out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I do have it's funny because when I shared, I shared it so many times that even I remember an executive at Goldman, and I've applied to Goldman too, and I've got rejected there as well so many times. But an executive at Goldman, he emailed me and said, "Look, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of regret not taking you on."
Well, that's good. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but then again, it's like it's kind of too late.
Yeah. Like I don't got the job. Like, what does it matter?
Yeah. But still, once you get that email, it's like, okay, it's not that bad. It's not too bad when you get rejected so many times, because you realize most of the time it's not your fault that you've been rejected. And think of it like this. I always think on a positive, standpoint. If I didn't get rejected so many times, I would not be here having a conversation with you guys. I would not have a story. If I've gotten everything that I've wanted to get, I would not have a story that I can capitalize from.
Well, okay. So in your book, you talk a lot about, Columbia University, which you mentioned you went to grad school, and you're also now a lecturer at. So what's next on your horizon? Like, what's the next thing that you're building that rejection resume to try to accomplish?
I've been trying to write, like, as far as put out content and writing. So I'm a contributor at Inc. Magazine, Entrepreneur Magazine, right? And recently I submitted an op-ed at New York Times. I got rejected. I got rejected twice. I'm building that resume on that aspect. Right? Wall Street Journal, I got rejected there as well. Recently, actually, NBC rejected me for an op-ed as well, and I'm building that the reject, because I'm pretty sure with Inc. Magazine, Entrepreneur, those are some great publications as well. Forbes, they're great, but I'm trying to hit the Times, and I'm getting rejected. I'm building that resume on that aspect. So one day I want to be that person where I'm not only just teaching or public speaking, but I'm writing, I'm putting out content, and I'm sharing my story that way via through words. And that's my next goal. Like, try to have this, try to freelance where I'm a critical thought leader in various areas and careers and development.
Cool.
That's basically my next goal here, and I am getting a lot of rejections because I'm just starting out, and it's okay. Right. Because I'm going to revisit that as a story, and one day they will hear from me again. And this is a constant reminder. When I share this, when I share my rejection resume, it's like they're gonna hear from me again.
This isn't the end.
Yeah, this is not. You're gonna hear from me one way or another. You're gonna hear from me again, and some of the tables have been turning in that aspect as well, and I look forward to even sharing my story in that regard. But yeah, that's my next step here.
Cool. We'll look forward to the Atlantic, the New Yorker, whatever it may be. We'll find it. We'll find it for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Joseph, if what you say resonates, where could they discover your work now if they wanted to read more and see more of what you put out?
So I'm active on all social media platforms: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I like to keep it the same handle. So it's DrElijoseph, Dr. Eli Joseph. There's no periods, no underscores. So it's Dr. Eli Joseph, DrElijoseph. And I'm available on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Clubhouse.
All the things.
Yeah, all the things here. But I keep it the same here. And you can also get the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble's, The Perfect Rejection Resume. It's pretty cheap. It's less than the gas prices that are being offered today. So feel free to grab a copy.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I really appreciate this conversation as well.
That was an awesome interview. Oh, is it because you need a couple more seconds?
Okay. No, we're good now. No, we're good.
That was an awesome interview. I never would have thought of this concept of putting down your rejections. I know people talk about, making a spreadsheet of all the places that you've been rejected from so you can track what you're doing. But this concept of putting it in resume form and really analyzing it is fascinating to me. So,
Well, and I think that spreadsheet tool is actually just every place you apply. It's almost
right.
like tracking. It's more, I feel like, for like measuring output,
Right.
and that kind of thing. But this is a little bit different of just owning all sides of your story, right?
Right.
I mean, even the fact that he brought in the idea of like how many times maybe you didn't finish school, right? And like I think
Right.
how often do we list or talk about those moments? And I think that can be a powerful part of a lot of people's story, myself included, right? So,
Yeah.
like having that out there is not something that I generally talk about, but yeah, what could come from that is me like even the normalizing that with the experience that I've had maybe in an interview or when I'm talking to an employer or even just like talking to others in a networking situation, being that extra layer of vulnerable and honest or open, who knows what that will bring in terms of, this larger networking piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you're going to love this. It goes back to a lot of your mindset, and the stuff we've been talking about of analyzing everything from all sides. You just have to be aware of what is going on both ends of the positive and the negative spectrum. And yeah.
I would like to like, I hope, if we do it, one thing that I would like us to do as part of it is like, what insights do you really get? And I think that was something that I recognize is probably depends on the person. But I am kind of curious, like what do people see when they look at these things? What takeaways are there? Cause I'm sure outside of just the emotional piece, I'm just kind of curious what kind of insights come from doing this practice.
Yeah, I definitely think we have to do this. And I think what we could do too is maybe read out some of the comments that we got and how we felt about those comments if we put them on the internet. So
Sure.
maybe that'll help us reflect upon what's going on.
Sounds good.
But we hope all you out there are reflecting on your lives and, just remember that all the battles you won came from all the battles you lost, and that you need to be making sure that you are always understanding that things can be, you can't get sunshine without the rain. And until the next time, we'll be working for you.
Ciao, y'all.